Camden, I'd like to pivot to the spiritual side of your work because, I mean, this is all intertwined.
Yeah, let's do
And
it.
you've talked about how ADHD impacts the self in a neurotypical world.
Yeah.
And how can understanding ADHD help us in our personal development, in our faith, in our spirituality, our relationship with a higher power, and self-acceptance?
Yeah, it's a big enough topic that I started a podcast about it, you know. So and I was working just with people with ADHD in the world as a whole, generally speaking, for about 4 years. And I still do. I still have my account. And I love that work. But there was something that just like called to me. Essentially, I used to run a directory of coaches, and my whole goal was to get the client to an ADHD coach that felt like a perfect fit, like a match made in heaven. Okay. And I was fine. I was like, you know what? Like, someone should like really start to do this work through the lens of spirituality. And I, even more specifically, through the denomination that I attend to. And I had this whispering just say, I wonder who that could be. And it was like, oh, so that's what's coming. So it took me a little bit to warm up to it, but since I've dove in, it's been really fascinating to start to notice how ADHD does impact people of faith or people that have a spiritual side to their life. And I did, once again, I have some notes that might kind of keep me a little bit more focused here today. But if we can, let's just start with emotional intensity. Okay, this dysregulation that can happen, and the fluctuation doesn't just go down; it also goes up and it goes down, right? And if we can understand that that's how we might connect to people, we might connect to stories, we might connect to congregations or communities, we might connect to ourselves with God, it's going to be okay if you feel like that is an emotional roller coaster where you're like, Jesus is my BFF, for a couple years in your life. And then you're like, you know, I know he's my BFF, but it feels different. Or faith is like central to my life, and I'm on it. I'm reading scripture every day. I'm praying frequently. I'm attending my meetings, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden it's like, I am so disinterested in this. Okay. That is not a problem. Okay. It's just how our brain works. I mean, ADHDers listening to this, how many of you have so many multiple hobbies that you've dabbled in throughout the years, right? And you just can kind of think of things like, yeah, I got good enough that I was like, yeah, I'm good enough, and then I moved on, right? It's almost the same thing with the consistency looks different in a spiritual being with ADHD. I like the word persistence a lot more than consistency. And we do hear consistency a lot in the body of the church. Consistently show up, consistently seek God, that's how we're going to get, even in personal development, consistency is what's going to get positive results. And it's not that they're wrong, but if we're always failing and always guilting ourselves and shaming because we're not consistent, but we have a brain that wasn't made to be, then we're measuring with the wrong denominator, right? Our expectations are really off. So, what does persistence look like for you? If I'm being persistent in my faith, that means it's never fully gone. I'm always coming back. I'm persisting, right? I'm gritty, I'm determined, and I get through it, not because I do 30 minutes of something every single day, but that when we zoom out in our life, we say, that was a faithful person. That was a person that put spirituality at the top of their list, and allowing for more flexibility and more freedom in that expectation of our desires in addition to our actions would be a great first talking point. You guys have any questions with that one in particular?
I just want to piggyback on it because it took me a long time to learn about, like, I call them my bursts
Hmm.
of like my burst of productivity.
Yeah,
And I know when a burst's coming, I can get more done in a burst in of a week of a burst than most people do in
that's
like
right.
6 months. Like
Yeah.
it's awesome and I love it. Um So I learned to just, when I have those coming, I'm getting as much done as I can. And then when it goes, I'm not gonna shame myself for that. I'm not gonna be like, well, why can't I do what I did before? You know, I heard someone talk about a sparkler versus a candle. So
Oh,
when you have
cool.
ADHD, it's like you're lighting a 4th of July sparkler. You're burning bright, you're burning hot, you're burning quick. And
Yeah,
versus like a neurotypical person is a candle. They can go
slow
consistently.
burn.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
so when I have my sparkler lit, it's great and everything's great, but when it goes out, it takes me a while to get back to a sparkler. And learning to just manage my life around that spiritually or like temporally, whatever it might be, has been a game changer because I don't say, well, I failed, now I have to do something else. I just say, I'm waiting for that next burst and I'm going to get it all done and it's going to be great and I'm excited for it and I'm motivated and those bursts come more quickly when I give myself the rest that my body
Yeah.
and mind need, and then I'm like right back in it the next time and it's great. So,
Self-acceptance, that's what I'm hearing. Yeah, it's
mhm.
self-acceptance. And a lot of people will say, you know, like ADHD is an excuse. You're using it as an excuse. But if we can use it as an explanation, then it leans into acceptance, right? And when we can accept that this is difficult, then once again, even in those non-burst weeks or non-burst times, we can say, I know I'm not going to feel motivated this week, but I still need to do laundry. I still need to do the dishes. I still need to fulfill all my community duties, my church duties, whatever it is. I still need to go to work. Okay. And so I'm like, okay, I have to prepare myself. This is not going to feel fun, but that doesn't mean something's wrong. That doesn't mean I don't do it. And that's where like the coaching, like from my perspective, that's where that coaching comes is on those non-burst weeks. Like, how do I continue to function? And if we have self-acceptance, then it's gonna go off the charts in comparison to if we're in shame or confusion or indecision, where we're just gonna do nothing. Yeah, it's not gonna work great.
What do you recommend for helping people with ADHD establish a routine? Because I don't know about you, but I can
Yeah.
speak. I'm not saying I have ADHD, but I know personally I really struggle with routine. And
Hmm.
I know my family member with ADHD really struggles with routine. And I'm imagining routine can be really hard for people with
Yeah.
ADHD, but also really helpful. So can you give
Hmm.
us your advice on routine building?
Yeah. Flexible structure.
Okay.
Okay. Understand an idea what flexible structure might look like. Okay. Uh, we resist structure like it's the plague, but structure is what keeps us grounded. And our drive for autonomy, our drive to feel independent and capable is extremely high. And so when we feel like anyone is bossing us or telling us we have to act a certain way, we're going to resist, even if it's good for us. So, what flexible structure helps us with is puts up some guardrails, but allows us to still have autonomy within that structure. So, when we're talking about routine, I like to think of things as menus. So, once you get really clear on what your goals are, your intentions are, your value system, whatever it is, and we can bring this right to spirituality right now. If it's scripture reading, if it's prayer, if it's meditation, if it's reaching out to members of your congregation, any of those things, if we're like, I have to do it every Tuesday, I have to do it for 20 minutes, be prepared to fail. Like, be prepared that your internal system is going to push against that. But if we say, for example, I'm just going to give you a personal example, okay? Within a month, I would like, here's the menu of things that I'd like to do. Okay, I'd like to visit someone. I'd like to attend this many services. I'd like to try and get into my scriptures once or twice a week, whatever it is. I have a menu. And so when I'm noticing I have time, when I'm noticing that I have energy and capacity, which is really important for people with ADHD, our capacity fluctuates as well. We don't have to in the moment think, oh crap, what are the things I'm supposed to be doing? We go to the menu, it's prioritized, it's visual, and we can choose from one of those options that we've already pre-decided. Okay, so that's one way that we can kind of create some kind of routine that is persistent, but maybe not as consistent. Uh, Now that was a lot more loose, right? A month versus a day. So I'm a mom of four, and laundry is a thing. Okay. And I'm a work from home mom. I work part time as a coach, and the other times I'm with my kids. And so what I've done is outsourced a lot of that. So I've been vocal about my husband taking on some. I've made chore charts for my children as to I can't remember what you guys are supposed to do, so go look on your chart. It's all predetermined. And so when they come home from school, for example, they look on Monday, they've got two chores. I got ADHDers too. That so we keep it simple. You start the laundry on Monday, by Wednesday, it's put into your drawers. I don't care if it's folded. You can fold it, but I don't care because the idea for me, the value was stronger for me that they had clean clothes, that the clean clothes were predictable, and that we didn't have to waste time looking for things. And so that's where that flexible structure is for this time in my life. So it can be very specific, or it can be very general. But if you can maybe, tattoo that on your forehead, flexible structure for ADHD ranges as well. I'm successful. I get an A plus if I go on a walk 3 to 5 times a week. A plus if it's three, A plus if it's five. Okay. We're not talking a C to an A range. A plus if it's 3 to 5 times. And that's going to allow us to be able to be more successful, have more of the self-acceptance, more of the confidence, more of the positive emotions. It's going to put us into action instead of push us out of action.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned, when you mentioned, I don't care if you fold the laundry.
Yeah,
I love that. And for a few reasons, and I'll draw this parallel between that and spirituality. A lot of times we have I should do it this way. Like I
that's
have
right.
to do it
Yes.
this way. If
Hmm.
I'm not, immediately folding it and putting it away, then I'm failing at laundry
Or
somehow.
at motherhood, or at
Yes.
being a Christ-like woman, or
Yeah.
at having order in God's kingdom, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, please. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So, I I had bless her heart, and I know she meant well. I had a Sunday school teacher or something one time say that like every time you don't kneel to say your prayers, the devil wins, and it like freaked me out,
That's
and
intense.
because I just it seemed so constricting. Like I just
Yeah.
like have to get out, and sometimes I do that as I kneel and pray, but sometimes I walk and pray, or sometimes I'm praying in my car as I'm driving, or
Yeah.
sometimes, I just couldn't, I was just like, I can't just stop my car and close my eyes and pray and be still right now, is the devil winning, So, and I say that, and, she probably, whatever, but, I say that to say that like, whatever way works for you in your spiritual life, if you don't have to meditate a certain way, you don't have to pray a certain way, you don't have to sit still and read scriptures sitting still. Sometimes I'll go for a walk and listen to them,
Listen,
or
yeah.
yeah, just
Hallelujah for that.
whatever
Definitely.
you can do. Like God just likes the effort, or or whatever you do that works for your spiritual health. So maybe you don't do your spiritual practice, whatever that might be, in the certain way every time that everyone else does, but as long as you're getting out of it what you need to get out of it, it doesn't really matter how you do it. So I love that you brought that up, and that was like the connection that my brain made.
Good. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's very comforting for me to remember that the God I believe in knows I have ADHD.
Yeah.
And the God I believe in is no respecter of persons. And the that I believe in doesn't follow societal norms. And so, what would that God tell me? He would tell me exactly what you said, Sierra. Come to me. I just want to hear you. I want to see you. And if we need to get on a deeper level, okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. But I just want to see you. I want to be with you. And uh, I do see that having grown up in a more higher demand religion has also helped my ADHD. And this is not everyone's experience. And so there's going to be a total dichotomy as we're talking here, a lot of dissonance with this particular part of this conversation. But having a dopamine driven brain and an interest driven brain, uh, I believe that I was kept safe by having these structures in many ways, that I didn't experiment with drugs, that my body would have been very drawn to, I think, because of the dopamine inclination. I wasn't drawn to sexuality, or I was drawn to sexuality a little bit more maybe than most people because of my ADHD. Uh, but having some structure there allowed me to hold on to something when I was trying to figure out what was going on in my brain and in my body, not just puberty, but this is a real thing. So I will say I am grateful for the structure that I grew up with, especially with the underdeveloped brain as a kid, right? The human brain doesn't develop fully till about 26, 27. And so I was really thankful for these things, for a bishop that said, "Hey, why don't you try writing in your journal? Because guess what journaling is? It helps you regulate. It helps you like brain dump all the time." And I wrote in my journal for like 20 years, motherhood changed everything, but
Mhm.
I am really thankful for these rituals that were offered to me because it did create some kind of grounding element. But it's when we swing that pendulum way too far and say, God only loves me if I'm in the ritual. God only loves me if I'm consistent with the scripture study. God only loves me if I'm quote unquote chaste or celibate. God only loves me if I'm clean from drugs. That's where the problem happens. God only loves me if I'm not viewing pornography. That's where the untruth is, right? And what we do is a perfectionistic society of ADHDers who constantly feel like we're a step behind. We're reaching for that perfectionism, but it's a counterfeit of what God really is. And I hope that you're seeing that this is coming all back to ADHD, because when we have dysregulated bodies and these glorious bodies that God gave us that are just amazing, and it's dysregulated and we haven't quite matured emotionally enough and physically enough, I think that there have been some really beautiful safety measures that have kept me healthy. And when I couldn't have kept myself as healthy. um, and as I've matured, finding flexibility in those structures and finding God's true love has been one of the greatest gifts for my faith, for my belief, and for my life satisfaction as a whole.
So beautiful, Camden. Thank
Yeah,
you
it
for
is.
that. Thank you.
I
So
mean, God be
beautiful.
praised. It is beautiful.
Yes. And earlier, Sierra, you said God likes effort. And when you said that, I thought God likes us. And I think the three of us, talk a lot about God loving us. And I also had the thought during this conversation, God not only loves us, God likes us. And I, as a perfectionist and maybe somebody who has undiagnosed ADHD, I don't know yet,
Yeah.
but I have thought that I needed to earn that love. And I never thought that, no, God just likes me. God
Mhm.
created me. God loves and likes me. So I think you saying all of these things just helped me see, wow, God likes us in all of our neuroatypical or
Yeah.
neurotypical ways.
This is where grace comes in beautifully for me, right? That idea that grace is a principle of God. And what does grace require? It requires imperfection. And so as we show up as imperfect, perfectly imperfect, isn't that Mary Poppins? I don't know. No, I don't know if it was, but perfectly imperfect, self-accepting, but willing to change and willing to progress and reaching for the stars, then I feel like that's when we really experience the atonement, in my case, atonement of Jesus Christ and his grace for us, is that we were never meant to do this perfectly. We're always meant to do it imperfectly. And we through that imperfection, get to experience how God teaches us and leads us and guides us and heals us, not from our neurodivergence. We need to be healed from our neurodivergence, but shows us how we can make it, how we can continue to progress with what we have been given. And it's, like I said, it's developed my faith so much more deeply than I could have ever imagined since receiving my own diagnosis and kind of going down this journey. It's been very inspiring. And I feel like I understand just how much I know nothing about God because of how much he's shown me that I thought I knew everything before. And I've just been shown even so much more.
Yeah, I love that. I it kind of going back to what you said, God knows I have ADHD. I through this whole thing have started to learn like I very much feel God gave me ADHD for a reason
Mm.
because it's like my superpower. And yes, it doesn't function all the time in neurotypical society,
It's
and that
superpower and kryptonite, right? There's
yeah,
both. Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
But I know realizing that I have it and seeing how differently I operate from other people, I'm just like, well, I can do these things and I'm just gonna do them. I called Jenna, we're like, we're gonna start a podcast. And we did that, or
Yeah. Yes.
whatever it
That's
is.
impulsivity at its best, right?
It was a little bit more planned out, but like, but
Just a
these,
little.
yeah, yeah. If you watch the first episode, we just went for it.
We didn't even have a name.
No, we just were like, ready, set, go.
But that's what I'm saying, like, right?
Yeah.
But it was no fear, or if there was
Mhm,
fear, there was
mhm.
enough determination and like oomph behind it, because we don't have these gates, that a lot of people, we don't have these, we're not tethered as much
Yeah.
as some people are. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I really have learned once I like I'm still figuring out how to work with it, but as I'm working with it, I've really learned to see it as a blessing. I see it as a superpower. I see it as something that makes me me and allows me to do what I've been put on this earth to do.
I love that.
And it's so empowering versus just something that is seen as like a disability. I get why you say that because, I don't function the way that other people function, but I see it as something so empowering as like right, like Superman can't just open a door the same way that other people can, but
Yeah.
he's Superman, You so I'm grateful too. And just to have this outlook of if you are recently diagnosed or feel like, oh no, like something's wrong with me, it's like you're different, but you're not broken. You're not broken. You're powerful and you have this for a reason. And when you work with it and learn about yourself and why you have it, you start to use it as the power it is. So,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, it starts with that acceptance. Yeah. I would absolutely say that each brain, even neurotypicals, even bless your hearts, neurotypicals out there listening, which is probably a high amount, but yeah, God made every brain for a purpose, and come what may as well, he can sanctify uh, any situation, right? He can make the weak strong. He can make whatever it might be, and I feel the same way. I mean, like it said in the bio, I'm a DIYer, and once I get an idea, like these bookshelves behind me, like whatever it is, give me a power tool, and I'm creating. And I feel like ADHDers are some of the greatest creators that are out there, and it's purposeful. So I agree. I find it very invigorating to utilize and to work with my brain as well. It's awesome.
Camden, I feel moved to ask you this. How can family members and friends support loved ones who have ADHD?
Oh, what a beautiful question. Just knowing the time we don't have. I think that the best thing to do is understand that not every person with ADHD has done all the work. Okay, so period there. Um, and so just because Sierra and myself, we've done the work to bring us to a place where we have intense self-acceptance, we're not in denial, we're not, doesn't necessarily mean that your loved one knows that about themselves yet. Having said that, compassion. is one of the most beautiful aspects, compassion and curiosity. And if we can lean into that, I mean, think of how often Christ taught with parables and with questions and with love, right? That's how we get to the root. So even if they don't know, if you're curious, hey, I've been noticing that when we wake up on Saturday mornings and I'm ready to go and I want to do a lot of yard work and I want to include that, you in that because it's fun, but you give me some resistance on Saturday mornings. Could you help me understand that a little bit more? Even if they don't know it's part of their ADHD, that type of communication is still going to be, I can tell you why. I can tell you why, from an ADHD perspective, why that's hard. But even if they don't know, having curiosity and compassion instead of accusation and judgment is always going to win out here. There's also just amazing ADHD podcasts out there, not just mine, but so many ADHD podcasts. I got bookcases of beautiful books out there that just learning this much, just tiny bit more, is going to like open your mind to the experience of someone with this neurodivergence. And if you're a parent setting your home up for your kids, or if you're a spouse or in a partnership, setting your home up and operating that way, if you're in community with or working alongside of someone, um, open communication or giving options or thinking of that autonomy, right? But compassion and curiosity, come back to those. And I'm hoping for you that they'll receive it well.
Thank you. That is so beautifully said. Camden, before we wrap up, are there any other things that you would like to touch on? Anything that you feel moved to share with us?
I I think we've said some really beautiful things today here. This is a process, and people with ADHD are like always in desire of the most efficient way. How can I get something done the most efficient? And what is hilariously ironic about that is most of the time in their attempt to figure out something being efficient, they come up with a list of 1,000 ideas and they never get started on one. And so I want to highlight that if you've been feeling resistance because you wanted to do it just the right way or just at the right time, or you're looking for that perfect piece to just click into the puzzle to get moving, that's your ADHD talking. And I want to give you permission to do this B minus, to do this imperfectly, to do it crunchy, to do it bored, to do it understimulated, but just to get in motion, whether that's reading a book, listening to a podcast, talking to a friend about the fact that you think you might have it, or scheduling an appointment. Let it be inefficient. Let it be imperfect. And once again, if you can bring grace in as part of that, then it's not going to feel nearly as bad. But expect it. Expect it to not necessarily feel exciting, and let that be okay. And that's my hug to you, because this work is beautiful and glorious, but it sometimes can be slow moving, and that's not a problem.
Thank you, Camden. Thank you so much. And so that's our invitation to you listeners this week after listening to this podcast is have grace with yourself, whether you think you might have ADHD, whether you know you do, or in supporting a family member or loved one, find a way to have grace with you and let yourself have the B minus. You're doing better
That's
than
right.
you think. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Thank you so much, Camden. And where can we find all of your work?
Sure, of course. My website is camdenadhdcoaching.com. My podcast is called The Busy Brained Saint, and I do a more generalized ADHD education account on Instagram and TikTok at Kamden_ADHD. But if you want to follow more of like my faith centered, specific to my faith in particular, because that's what I speak from, is at the Busy Brained Saint.
At the Busy Brained Saint.
Mhm.
Camden, we've been so blessed by your presence today. Please, listeners, do follow her work. If her work resonates with you, it really resonates with me. I'm so grateful for you, Camden. And we hope that you will like and subscribe to the podcast and share this with others. And we hope that you follow the peace.